Welcome into Spurs Live, the championship edition. I'm Rick Renner as we continue our championship celebration in the Alamo City. From the boats on the Riverwalk to the speeches at the Alamo Dome, you're not going to miss anything. We've got you covered until the last Spurs speaks. The drive for 5 is complete, and we celebrate the most prolific team in any sport in the last 15 years.
The San Antonio Spurs have won their first NBA championship. The San Antonio Spurs are your world champions.
And for the third time in 7 seasons, the San Antonio Spurs are the NBA champions.
The San Antonio Spurs are NBA champions once again, their 4th title in 9 years. San Antonio is back on top once again. The Spurs are the 2014 NBA champions. In 2014, the best team in the NBA resides once again in San Antonio, Texas.
Welcome into the Spurs Live Championship Edition. We're all done with the boats on the Riverwalk, and now we're just working our way to the Alamo Dome. Rick Renner alongside my trusty sidekick, Andrew Monaco, enjoying all the boats and the barges. There's the Red Rocket with family, having fun with all the fans. What a special day this is in San Antonio. We've done this several times here on Fox Sports Southwest, but for the first time, we're going to remain live until the Alamo Dome celebration. If you're a Spurs fan, just put this show on and watch, because we got the music, we got the celebrations, we got it all. And welcome into our Fox Sports Southwest studios. Andrew Monaco, Rick Renner here, taking you through the next 2 hours leading up to the championship rally at the Alamo Dome. We got a lot in store for you. We got season recaps, detailed analysis from this man, all the highlights from the drive for 5. And Andrew, it really is an amazing thing. We heard from Tim Duncan today. He said on Sunday night that this one means just a little bit more. How important was it for Timmy and the rest of the Spurs, not only to get their 5th title, but to get revenge and redemption over the Miami Heat?
You'd have to say that this title for the Spurs began when last season's game number 7 ended, and that was so huge for this Spurs team. For Tim Duncan, it was a moment in the finals where, you know what, he left after those finals knowing that he could have changed the result there, but he had a finals where he came up short. So that's what he went through over the course of the offseason, coming back and wanted to redeem himself, if we use that word. For Manu Ginobili, and it was a finals where people were asking, are you going to retire? But there was no retiring for Manu, but there was also going to be no playing in the summer for Manu. Not going to play for Argentina during the FIBA Americas Championships. He was going to lift. He was going to make himself stronger because he didn't want the repeat. And let's be honest, folks, those two were not going to walk away from the game of basketball after that result against Miami in the 2013 NBA Finals. As for Tony Parker and for Boris Diaw, they got a chance to step right back on that basketball floor and play for France and do things that France has never done before. They won the FIBA Europe Championships, and Tony Parker was the male athlete of the year in Europe. So they got to really expunge some of those memories. But there were other players that also went to work and became better players in the offseason. Patty Mills got absolutely stronger and better. Danny Green was better. Kawhi Leonard was better. So really, the moment that series ended into the season, their offseason really set the tone, Rick, for this championship run.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people thought that the window for this team was closing just because of the age, but actually the Miami Heat were older than this San Antonio Spurs game. All right, well, let's take a look now at how the championship run went down. I was in the tunnel in Miami a year ago at the American Airlines Arena and saw Larry O'Brien and that trophy being wheeled out for game number 6, but unfortunately Miami hit that lucky shot, but that's when everything began. The Heat unfortunately prevailed that year, but the Spurs, they never felt sorry for themselves. Just reloaded. R.C. Buford got deals done with Thiago Splitter, Marco Bellinelli in July. Marco was a huge factor in the regular season, won the three-point shooting contest All-Star Weekend. In August, Pop lost assistant Brett Brown to the 76ers. Before that, Coach Bud to Atlanta. Pop kidded. He had to coach the coaches before he policed the players. In September, Tony Parker and Boris Diaw won the Eurobasket for the gold medal. You talked about it, Andrew, foreshadowing a big year for the French connection. In October, the Spurs recommit after the heartbreaking finish in 2013. First thing Pop showed the guys in training camp, a replay of Game 6 of the finals the year before. Spurs get off to one of those best starts in the NBA at 14-3 out of the gates. In December, the Spurs went to Mexico City in a week where they traveled in 3 different countries, Canada too, but the game was canceled and postponed till later in the year because of the smoke in the arena from a fire from a unit inside that arena. Then, in the new year, the injury bug bit, and it bit hard. The Spurs were able to weather the storm, though, with 2 starters missing time and Manu Ginobili out. Despite being undermanned and Tony Parker shutting down after the All-Star game for a couple of weeks, the Spurs still won 7 of 10 on the rodeo road trip. Then it was March Madness. The Spurs got everybody back and went undefeated in the month of March, won a franchise record 19 straight in the regular season, but in April had to fight the critics of whether or not they could beat the league's elite. Just 2-9 against the top 3 in the West. But the Spurs saved their best basketball against the best teams later. In May, the Spurs catch fire when they really mattered the most. The Dallas Mavericks actually gave the Spurs the toughest series, and then they blew the Mavs out in game number 7, and then exercised some other demons. They roll the Blazers and the Thunder. The Spurs snapped an 11-game losing streak in Oklahoma City to close out the Thunder in game 6. And then in June, the drive for 5 was finally complete. Spurs beat the Heat in the most impressive beating in NBA history, and the Spurs get revenge and do it in impressive fashion. So, Andrew, it's been such a great ride the last 8 months. What memories to you really stand out?
It's a course of the regular season. I think it was the absolute joy that this team played with. I know that's kind of a, ever-expanding type thing, but you could really see how this team enjoyed one another. And every time, and we get the pleasure of talking with these players, and it seems that everybody wanted to talk about somebody else over the course of this campaign. And we talk about the bench an awful lot, and we will for the next couple of hours. But when you go through that calendar, Rick, and we got to January and we got to February, this is where the bench and the depth and the reserves really paid off because they were ready to step in at any moment. Yeah, they lost Kawhi, they lost Danny, and they lost Manu, but this team never used that as an excuse. So it was a case of next man up, if you want to use the football mentality right there, and that's exactly what it was. And then they were ready because no moment was too big for them. And when you get to the playoffs, Rick, I can't help but think that we thought it was going to be easier against the Dallas Mavericks, and it was not until game number 7. Portland thought it was going to be difficult because they're so athletic, and it wasn't. And we saw the Spurs do things on offense during the postseason that we had not seen before. Their offense was humming. They were scoring 70 points in the first half. They were scoring 65 points in the first half. They were doing it against great teams like Portland, like Oklahoma City, and then doing it against Miami. When defense is supposed to get better, the Spurs offense was humming. It was a pleasure to watch.
And love that they won that last game with the throwback to the old Spurs days. Defense wins championships. Well, no team has exemplified the word team more than this year's bunch. It was the deepest team with the best bench in basketball. They shared the basketball more than any other squad, leading the league in assists again. And this is the first team since the shot clock in the mid-50s to have a leading scorer average so little in points. Tony Parker was just a 17 points per game scorer. Here's a look back at an amazing regular season, best in the West and best in the league.
We all are hurt by what happened at the end of last year. We all are excited about the opportunity that we had and as far as we went and as well as we played. But obviously not having that last step and not coming away with a championship is going to stick with us.
While the road to NBA redemption was a far-off prospect for most of the team, the Spurs' 3 Frenchmen had little time to consider it. Boris Diaw, Tony Parker, and Nando De Colo
joined their national teammates to compete for the Eurobasket Championship in Slovenia. Parker averaged 19 points a game and collected MVP honors after leading France to its first ever title. While most of the faces were familiar at the start of training camp, the location was not. Air Force grad Greg Popovich took his charges to Colorado Springs to train at the service's famed academy. Gone to free agency were center DeJuan Blair and guard Gary Neal. Signed was big man Jeff Pendergraph, who soon became Jeff Ayers, and sharp-shooting Italian Marco Bellinelli. A more dramatic change was happening nearer Pop on the bench. Longtime assistants Mike Budenholzer and Brett Brown took head coaching gigs in Atlanta and Philadelphia. Former Spur and front office man Sean Marks was brought in, as was former Indiana assistant Jim Boylan. Pop admitted that most of camp involved coaching the coaches. The start of the regular season couldn't come soon enough for most, and the Spurs were ready. The team raced out to a 14-1 record that included an 11-game win streak. It wasn't the Spurs' hot start that caused it, but rather a defective generator. A game in Mexico City against the Minnesota Timberwolves was rescheduled after the arena filled with smoke just before tip-off. Still, the Spurs' hot start to the new season didn't necessarily translate to a hot start to the new year. The Spurs dropped 5 of their last 7 in January, including 3 in a row to Miami, Houston, and Chicago. Yet somehow the rodeo road trip always seems to remedy what's ailing this team. San Antonio would go 6-3 with big wins at Portland and against the Clippers. The All-Star break also falls during the road trip. Tony Parker was tabbed for the 6th time to join the West squad, and newcomer Marco Bellinelli let his shooting do the talking as he bombed his way to the three-point shootout title. Marco was a reflection of his team's depth. Along with Manu Ginobili, Patty Mills, Diaw and company, the Spurs bench routinely crushed their counterparts in the box scores. They often outscored the starters as well. One adjustment to that bench at the trade deadline saw Nando De Colo traded to Toronto for 4-year veteran Austin Day. Springtime in Texas can be a beautiful thing. After winning the last 2 games in February, the Spurs rolled through a perfect March and took a franchise-best 19-game win streak into the regular season's final stretch. As was the case with the previous 11-game streak, it ended at the hands of the Thunder in Oklahoma City. Even so, by then, the Silver and Black had all but wrapped up the league's best record and home court advantage throughout the playoffs. Their 62-20 record was their 5th of 60+. It also marks their 17th straight playoff appearance and 15th consecutive 50-win season.
So many records set by the Spurs this year. They broke the franchise record for consecutive victories with 19 in March and April. And it paid off that the Spurs not only got the top seed in the West, but the #1 overall seed, which meant home court advantage throughout the postseason. And the Spurs were 11-2 at the AT&T Center in the playoffs and put together the 5th longest regular season win streak in history with 19 in a row. I know Pop kidded during this. He wanted them to lose because he needed them to focus on what he was saying.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to, over the course of this show, I'm going to bring you some lines that Pop always says or the Spurs always concentrate on. And it comes down to skipping steps, that you could be winning but not doing things the right way. And that's what he meant. You've got to keep that focus at all time. But the way the Spurs did that through the month of March, and as we were going, it was, you know what, can we keep on keeping on like this and keep rolling? Because when you get into March and you head towards April, you want to be playing your best basketball. That's what they did in that month.
The Silver and Black were road warriors as well, an NBA best and another franchise record with 30 victories away from the AT&T Center. Andrew, winning on the road is so crucial for establishing home court throughout the playoffs, wasn't it this year?
Absolutely, and 30 wins on the road was just huge, and it was why the Spurs were able to get 60-plus wins. And as you see, the 5 road wins better than the Thunder, more than the Warriors, the Clippers, and the Blazers. And the Spurs, you use that to their advantage. Rick, because their style of play translates to the road. You can still share the basketball on the road. You can still go good to great on the road.
And, of course, the Spurs are a model of stability in that they have won more 50-win seasons than any other franchise in the NBA. 15 straight years, and you had a lockout year that kind of hurt it. It might have been longer.
It might have been longer. You're exactly right, because what did they do? They were 6-8 at one point over the course of that lockout-shortened season, and then would finish 37-13. But it is that kind of consistency for the Spurs. 15 consecutive 50-win. Here's another one. How does Greg Popovich refer to the Spurs but the program? And if you're going to have a successful program, you have to have the key pieces, and that's the whole key. Yes, the big three drive it because they're the most competitive guys, and everybody else has to fall in line. And when you strive for the excellence, Rick, it's going to come. They bring in the right people. You and I kind of joke every once in a while when we see a player, oh, he would look great in silver and black. Well, when you look at the additions to this year, a Jeff Ayers, a Marco Bellinelli, they looked great in silver and black. That was the Spurs type of players that they needed.
They always find them. R.C. Buford does a fantastic job of that. Well, stick around. We're just getting the party started on the big show. Later on, we'll take you back out to the Riverwalk and show you extended highlights of the parade in case you missed it. Maybe you were out there. Maybe you were enjoying it in person. You'll get to see some of that, plenty of the memories as the Spurs soak in their 5th title. But coming up next, it's time to talk about that magical playoff run. It was a record-setting postseason for the Silver and Black. We relive it next on Spurs Live, the Championship Edition. Welcome back to Spurs Live, the Championship Edition. We're in between the Riverwalk celebration, and we're going to count you on up to the Alamo Dome celebration and the rally. We'll hear from all the guys, Bill Land and Sean Elliott, hosting in just a moment. Let's go back out to the Riverwalk and listen in to Tiago Splitter.
Wow, unbelievable. All the support that we have in this town, all the Spurs fans all over Texas State, all over the world. You know, and now in the crowds here in the streets, it was unbelievable. I never saw something like that. It was my first ring, first experience, so really nice to be part of this team.
Could you have ever imagined that many people down on the river cheering for you?
No, I never thought, I never imagined that before. And I remember when I came here first time and walked at the Riverwalk, and now I'm celebrating a championship.
How was it the morning after waking up? Did you have any maybe different thoughts that you were able to kind of collect after things had settled?
Well, you wake up and you feel so released. You have no more games, no more pressure, no more, and it's just a satisfaction. And that's how I felt, and really, really good.
Did Manu tell you anything before y'all took off on the barge, what it was going to be like?
Well, yeah, he told me it's going to be crazy. A lot of people, like always, our fans love us, and just be ready because it's going to be crazy. That's what he told me.
And you made it all the way on the barge? No problem? No waves? Nothing like that?
No. Nobody jumped in the water. It was good. It was good.
What did Pop have to say for y'all call the day?
Excuse me?
What did Pop have to say in your final media day, final time?
We had, you know, we talk about our journey to get to this ring. He makes some jokes, but you know, it's private, and it was very good.
You're walking up the steps with the trophy. Does it now sink in that you are an NBA champion?
It's hard. It's hard to sing that, but you know, it's such a good thing. Everybody who plays in the leagues won this trophy, and we did it as a team, playing well. And I'm proud of all my teammates because everybody has a part of it.
What's next for you?
Next, now rest, enjoy the moment, and then we will see.
You're going to go watch some World Cup?
Probably.
Are you going to put the national team this summer?
Yes, I will.
Tiago Splitter enjoying the glow of his first championship celebration. I like Manu telling them about all the fans. And you think about what a convincing way the Spurs won this. The largest margin of victory at 14 points a game. They blew out the two-time defending champs.
That's exactly what they've done. That's exactly what they did against Miami. And I know game 1 was a runaway late in that fourth quarter. 2 was tight. 3, 4, and 5 were not. You go back to what Danny Green said during the River Parade. You know what? It's the way they did it. He was absolutely right. The way they did it so convincingly over the Heat.
Yeah, you think about it. It was supposed to be this amazing rematch. It turned into no match at all.
Yeah.
It was a mismatch. Well, it was quite a ride for the Silver and Black on their way to a 5th NBA title from the 7-game series against Dallas and the I-35 rivalry war to settle the score with the Thunder. And, of course, the invasion of South Beach against Miami. Let's relive it all the way back, courtesy of Spurs Insider.
The Spurs' toughest matchup in the 2014 postseason would come in the first round against in-state rival Dallas. Things got off to a good start as Tim Duncan leads the Spurs to a tough win with 27 points, and Tony Parker adds 21. Just before Game 2, head coach Greg Popovich is presented with the NBA's Coach of the Year award. The Mavs did not seem impressed. Monte Ellis has a big night, finishing with 21 as the Mavs take a split on the road. The Spurs seem ready to regain the home court advantage as Manu Ginobili gives the Spurs a 2-point lead late in Game 3. But Vince Carter pulls off the impossible shot from the corner as time expires, and the Spurs look to be in trouble. We go to a critical Game 4, and this time it was the Spurs' late heroics that made the difference. Boris Diaw hits a big 3 for the final margin of victory, and we're back to even. Both teams would hold serve at home in very close games 5 and 6. Finally, the Spurs found some midseason magic and pulled away convincingly in Game 7 with Tony Parker leading the way with 32. No team in the NBA has had more success against the Spurs in recent years than the Portland Trail Blazers. But after winning games 1 and 2 at the AT&T Center by a combined 41 points, many wondered how the Blazers would fare at home. The answer, not well. Tony Parker's 29 and Tim Duncan's 19 lead the way to a 15-point blowout. Damian Lillard would go off in Game 4 to avoid the sweep, but San Antonio takes care of business back in the Alamo City behind Kawhi Leonard and Danny Green's 22 points apiece. It was exactly 2 years earlier that the Spurs season was halted in the Western Conference Finals by Oklahoma City. Add that to the fact that OKC had stopped both an 11 and 19-game win streak by the Spurs this season. But Tim Duncan wasn't feeling nostalgic as the big man pours in 27 points in Game 1 and the Spurs roll. Danny Green catches fire and buries 7 threes in Game 2 as the Spurs continue to flourish at home. But unlike Portland, the Thunder were ready to return the favor. Serge Ibaka's surprise return to the lineup inspires the home team, and Oklahoma City dominates games 3 and 4 to pull even. Back in San Antonio, it was business as usual for the home team. Duncan and Ginobili lead a balanced attack, and the Spurs again win going away. Game 6 looms large for Kevin Durant and company. With Tony Parker on the bench in the second half with a sore ankle, the Thunder erase a nearly 20-point lead and force an overtime. But Tim Duncan keeps his cool and takes matters into his own hands. The big fundamental finishes with 19 and 15, and the Spurs defend their Western Conference crown. All eyes were on San Antonio as the redemption series got underway. The Spurs were 5-0 in Game 1s of NBA Finals. Now, a malfunction with the arena's AC would get a lot of the attention, but it was another well-balanced attack by the Spurs that carried the day. The team's 13 of 25 from beyond the arc would prove a good precursor for things to come. The Spurs pull away for a 15-point victory. Now, things cooled down in Game 2 for everyone that is except LeBron James. And after coming out tied at the half, James scores 14 points in the third. The Spurs keep it close down the stretch, but are ultimately doomed by poor free throw shooting, and the Heat take a split back to Miami. If there were any ghosts hanging around American Airlines Arena from last year, the Spurs didn't seem scared. San Antonio comes out blazing, hitting 86% of their shots in the first quarter, 76% for the first half. Leading the charge, forward Kawhi Leonard, who finished with a team-high 29. A Heat run in the third was repelled, and the Spurs cruised to a 19-point victory to regain the home court advantage. And in Game 4, it was more of the same. Kawhi Leonard again answers the bell as he leads 4 Spurs in double figures with 20. The Spurs led by as many as 25 and never let the Heat within single digits in the second half. The Silver and Black returned to San Antonio with a commanding 3-1 lead. It became evident early on this was going to be LeBron's game to win or lose. And it seemed at the beginning that the tide had turned. The Heat opened with a 22-6 run before things settled down. And the second quarter was all San Antonio. Once again, Leonard had a big hand in the turnaround. He'd finished with 22 points and 10 boards. Manu and Patty Mills also had big contributions from the bench. The second half was all San Antonio, and redemption was at hand.
And with that, we have so many to choose from. What are your top 5 plays of the playoffs?
You know what's the beauty about the top 5 is there's not one moment, so we have to go with 5. And everybody gets involved as we have the top 5 plays. Man, anytime Manu passes the basketball, it has to make our top 5. Look at that baseline pass to Danny Green in the corner. Only a left-hander like Manu would even think about making that pass. And Danny just gets to catch and shoot. Outstanding to be able to play with a guy like Manu Ginobili. How about overtime Game 6? This series was not going to Game 7 because Tim, he's got the mismatch with Reggie Jackson. Westbrook doesn't get there in time. Overtime belonged to Tim Duncan. Earlier in OT, he was able to make the moves past Ibaka. Here, the mismatch. Spurs close it out in 6. All still in game number 6. Russell Westbrook was great until he met up with Kawhi Leonard, who not only makes the block, but reestablishes himself inbounds to go get that basketball and go back the other way. Westbrook thought he had 2. Kawhi says, you'll get nothing and like it. More Kawhi Leonard, huh? How great was he? Patty Mills in that corner. Hello! Nobody there to get. Look at him timing this. Oh my gosh. I just loved it. And Kawhi, who breaks out on the national stage. Look, it should have been he should have had his own cam. Good Kawhi Leonard in games 3, 4, and 5. And then in game 5, Rick, absolute chills watching this because turn back the clock for Manu Ginobili. Take that. And I remember I texted that as soon as it happened to my friends. Take that, Miami. And for that moment, you can put all the frustration of last year right there. It gets dunked. I could not have been happier for Manu Ginobili and the Spurs. But that's the beauty of this team, Rick, is we still have more memories to go through. You know, that's a great top 5. But Boris Diaw goes behind his back. And Boris, you hit the 3 that he hit against Dallas. Or Tony in any game against Portland. I think that's the beauty of this Spurs team is that entire contribution by San Antonio and by this team. Patty Mills will have his moment. Tiago's going to have his moment. We saw Tim, Danny Green hitting the 3s. Everybody's going to look back with pride. And interesting what Tiago said, right, about what did Greg Popovich tell you? He's going to make it personal to each and every one of them, and all of them are going to take pride that every single one of them add up to that 5th championship trophy.
I thought Manu wasn't allowed to dunk anymore.
He can in game 5 because there's no more games to miss, and that hammy must have been feeling real good.
Time for a timeout. We're just getting the party started here on Spurs Live, the championship edition. Coming up next, it's time to talk about the best of the NBA Finals and more as we continue to count you down to the big party at the Alamo Dome here on Fox Sports Southwest. Don't go anywhere. Poor LeBron.
Danny Green has come alive here in the 4th quarter. The San Antonio Spurs take game 1.
Mama, there goes that man.
Push pass from downtown, and the Heat go up 2. Miami has won and have tied the NBA Finals at 1 game apiece. Leonard again aggressive. And one! Come on, man! Leonard another 3. Puts it in. Kawhi Leonard. A scintillating shooting performance for San Antonio. Leonard finishes strong on the right hand. Spurs with a huge response here in Game 3. Comes the double team behind the back pass to Splitter. Oh, what a beautiful look from Boris Diaw. Patty Mills from downtown. It's a 20-point lead. Mills, not that time. Leonard on the follow. Kawhi Leonard throws it down.
I am shocked.
Pass inside. Diaw to Duncan for the finish. Once again, spectacular ball movement. The San Antonio Spurs with another masterpiece, and they take a 3-1 lead.
The great part is we got all night long to take care of a bad start.
Ginobili on the finish, flushes it with the left hand. Wade blocked by Splitter. Mills for 3. Mills, bang! Leonard pushes out to Ginobili. Puts it in. What an avalanche from San Antonio. A 21-point lead. San Antonio is back on top once again. The Spurs are the 2014 NBA champions.
Leonard on the move. And score! Kawhi Leonard with the acceleration.
Leonard a jumper. Another 3.
Boy, Kawhi Leonard scorching minutes here in the opening 4.5 minutes with 8 points. Here's Leonard again. Beautiful. Kawhi Leonard, 5 of 6 from the field.
Kawhi Leonard. Hearing it from this crowd as Oklahoma City takes a timeout.
With Leonard for 3. Puts it in. Kawhi Leonard from downtown.
Kawhi Leonard. The fans of San Antonio know how great you are, and now the whole world does. You are the 2014 Bill Russell MVP.
This is my second finals appearance in my 3rd year. I've been just progressing each year, and the team has also.
Alley-oop, Diaw to Leonard. How about Leonard taking it away from Wade?
It just makes you believe in your craft and your hard work.
We continue Spurs Live, the championship edition. Rick Renner alongside the fan favorite Andrew Monaco, counting you down to the rally at the Alamo Dome. From the boats to the speeches, we are all over it. And speaking of yachts, boy, did the ship come in fast for 22-year-old sensation Kawhi Leonard. He's talking to the media right now at the Riverwalk. Let's listen in.
I mean, it was a great experience. So many fans came out, and I just thank them for all their support and effort that they put in throughout the whole season.
You are shy by nature, I guess. Is that fair to say? But what has this explosion of media and attention and hoopla been like for you the last 48 hours?
It's been great. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted to win an NBA championship, and we did it as a team, and it's just been a great overall experience for me.
I just wondered, has that left your side, the MVP trophy, the last 2 or 3 days?
No, it's been glued to my hand.
What was it like when that barge took off and you were able to address the crowd? I mean, that was some emotion that we rarely see when that crowd got you all fired up and seemed to get them fired up.
Hey, are you talking about today?
Yeah, I'm talking about when the barge took off.
Oh, yeah, like I said, they're great fans. They got me going today, and I had a great experience with Corey and his family and my family being in that boat, and we're just trying to live in a moment and just soak it all in.
Could you have ever imagined that many people out here cheering for you on the river?
No, it was just about looked like 60,000 people out here. It was great. I love them, and I thank them all for coming out.
What's next for you?
What's next? Just enjoy the summer and begin to work out.
You've heard for obviously a couple of years now, this franchise is all about family. For your own family, what was this like, this finals run, this experience today? What's it been like to share with your mom and your extended family?
I'm pretty sure they were all happy and very proud that we came out on top this year, because they know how sad I was and down about the last year's loss. So this year has just been great. We just, like I said, we're just trying to live in a moment and just keep the experience in our heart and keep it moving.
When you get that trophy unglued from your hand, where are you going to put it?
I don't know yet. I don't want it to get out of my hands at all.
Tim did this for the first time 15 years ago. Are we going to see you in 15 years still floating with more trophies?
Hopefully. You know, he's a great role model, and hopefully I can have a great career like he did. He won 5 NBA titles, and it's just something that players don't do.
Have you seen the new sports?
The quiet riot, he was special. Remember, he had to defend LeBron James, and then he put up 3 20-point games against him. He put himself in impressive company here. The second youngest MVP in NBA Finals history behind Magic Johnson. He's only 22, Andrew.
He's only 22. That's the rest of the league. Look out. We know that Magic Johnson was just outstanding and was a game changer when he came in. Tim Duncan, obviously the best power forward. And for Kawhi Leonard, the beauty of Kawhi is now I think the defense of Kawhi is going to be so appreciated. Sean Elliott said that he's the best defender on the perimeter, and I guarantee you from now on we're going to look at that a little bit more. Kawhi's going to have a defensive player of the year coming, but offensively is where the evolution of Kawhi Leonard came this year. Remember his rookie year, it was just the corners for the threes, then he worked in the middle of the floor. Rick, he was all over the floor this year.
Yeah, you think a career year for him, no question, and I can't believe we're saying that. He's only been in the league for a few years. A guy who's been a rising star at the All-Star festivities in his first 2 seasons. Not many can say that. He really became a household name in the finals, though, winning the MVP and even outplaying LeBron James at times, and he was fearless against him. As we look at our Fox vision, Andrew, what makes him so special?
You know what? He just said that he was going to take time to work out because this guy loves to play basketball, and when he walks off the basketball floor, he's either lifting or he can't wait to get back into the gym and work out and make himself better. And in this Fox vision, we're going to see just how special Kawhi Leonard is and how far he's come. He sees this angle to the basket. Look, LeBron's in bad position right here, and Kawhi's going to take advantage. Bosh is going to have to stay with Tim Duncan. Is there enough time for Dwayne Wade to come over, or does he stay by Boris Diaw? And the attacking Kawhi Leonard. There are certain guys, Rick, who go to the hoop to get fouled. There are certain guys who go for and one. Kawhi and one. Ray Allen back to the basketball. There's no one on that baseline. Time to attack. Norris Cole, not a chance. Birdman, not in time. And here, the space that he gives out of the corner to Patty Mills. Now, he times it because if you go too soon, he's not in position. But he timed it, Patty's jump. He knows if there's a miss, it's going to go in the air, and he is right there for that. Not a single Miami Heat boxed out Kawhi Leonard, and he made them pay. It is those types of play, what he has brought to this Spurs offense, the steal and the dunk, the drive and the dunk, the baseline and the dunk. I know I've said this before, that dunks are 2 points and 3-point shots are more, but it energizes teams. When you do it at home, the crowd goes nuts. When you do it on the road, it's a little bit deflating because you have just taken some of the air out in that building, and that's what Kawhi did. But to see this guy attacking and using the entire floor now, this is what we mean by the evolution of Kawhi Leonard offensively, and he put it on display in the biggest stage in basketball, the NBA Finals.
Fearless out there from a young guy. Most guys are just kind of wanting to not do anything wrong. Let's take a break here on Spurs Live, the championship edition. Coming up next, we'll talk about how Manu Ginobili got atonement for last year and how the best bench in basketball was a major difference in the drive for 5. We're counting you down to the big rally at the Alamo Dome on Fox Sports Southwest.
Rangers fans, this Saturday, the only place to see the Rangers play the Angels is on Fox Sports 1. Tune in at 9 to see the Rangers battle the Angels. You're home for baseball every Saturday. Fox Sports 1 and Fox.
Backcourt violation. Ginobili, pass deflected. No, he just threw it away. Back to Ginobili. Ginobili out of control, throws it away.
We worked 8 months really hard. We had a very successful season, and all we did was to get to this point again, to have another shot.
Ginobili steps back and hits the three. Ginobili for three. Count it and one. Ginobili on the finish.
Well, you know, the victory is the sweetest for Tim and Manu. All he wanted was another shot at Miami. He got it, and he definitely capitalized on it. Andrew Monaco, Rick Renner here. We're counting you up to the Alamo Dome celebration in just moments here on Fox Sports Southwest. Well, one that marks a great player is knowing when the moment arrives and then stepping up in the moment. And Manu definitely did that.
And Manu has stepped up in the moment for every single year of his career for the Spurs. He's just awesome. And, the beauty of Manu is, we've said this before, there's no moment too large for him. And there is no moment that's too scary for him. This is a guy who wants the basketball when things aren't doing well. And this is the guy who makes everybody else better. And when he wants to get selfish, how about that three at the end of that phenomenal first quarter in Game 3? Manu can carry this team on his back when he has to, and he can get everybody else involved. The thing that I love about Manu is that this guy just was not going to leave this game after last year. It was not possible. So last year in the finals, this year in the finals, all the numbers are better for Manu Ginobili. And he could not be happier for a guy who has been so good to us personally, but given so much enjoyment to this San Antonio Spurs team. And again, if there was a redemption for Manu Ginobili, it did come. He was hurt. And I remember being in this studio after Game 6 and how crushing that was. And saying, you know what, we've got to hear from Manu because it's going to be raw and it's going to be emotional. And as low as that was, now the high of Manu Ginobili. But you have to take the steps to get there. And Manu with his team took those steps. And in the finals, that moment was never too large for him. He's never going to look in the rearview mirror. He's always going to look ahead. And I think that's the big key. He owned up to what 2013 was, and he knew it was going to be different in 2014. Now, we're going to try to give you an advantage of what it's like to be Manu Ginobili. You and I always wonder what he sees. And in Fox Vision, we're going to kind of slow things down and try to get into his head a little bit. So here's the Fox Vision from the finals. Rick, it's a two-man game with Thiago Splitter, who's always setting a screen, and Miami's going to switch. Battier is going to take Splitter. Rashard Lewis is going to take Manu. Now, Manu's going to back it out right now because when you have a big, you take advantage of it. Nothing there. Manu backs out. Read the floor once again. Drive on Rashard Lewis. 3 Heat on the right side of that lane. Only Lewis is there. Remember, Manu is left-handed. The right-handed dribble into the paint. Get out of my way. Put it in for an and one. Now, here's the passing of Manu Ginobili. Again, he's in Splitter's wake. You see Shane Battier giving Kawhi Leonard too much room. Now, they both jump to Kawhi, to the two defenders, Ray Allen, Chris Anderson. So, he knows where everybody is on the floor, right? We've always said that. The little hook pass, Kawhi wide open because Battier was shading, taking the lane away from Manu Ginobili. And here, this is Manu. This is where you exercise everything of last year. You have Bosch. Diaw's going to take him away. 4 Miami Heat are too high. Manu knows it's a race to the basket. He sees his path, and he knows right now he's going to finish. Protect that basketball. Throw it down. No. Manu Ginobili does, and he just did that. Look, Ray Allen, get out of my way because I've got another title to win. Just a little bit into Manu Ginobili. He's fascinating with Fox Vision. I love the way we're able to do that and kind of thing. I've always thought that I would love to get into his mind and how he thinks. I swear, his mind it's got to react. He's got to see things quicker than anybody else. And that's the beauty of Manu when you watch him. I have used this line before. We are in the business where we get to watch this, but I would flat out pay to watch just Manu Ginobili on the floor. He is that enjoyable. Whether it's passing, whether it's shooting the three, whether it's attacking, it's the beauty of Manu, and he has been so enjoyable, and I couldn't be happier for someone to get his 4th title.
He's the guy that knows where everybody's supposed to be, even on the defending team that's playing against him. He knows where they should be. He's like, get over there. Hey, funny thing about Manu, he actually contemplated retirement after last year, signed that 2-year deal, and he said he's back to defend this title next year. Let's take a break. Coming up next, it's time to revisit the rowdy scene at the Riverwalk. We're gearing up for tonight's championship rally at the Alamo Dome. But first, we will take a look back at the first celebration. If you missed it, coming up next, if you keep it where it is.
Combination for Tim Duncan.
I've seen your resume. It's only one page. You're pushing it to get it on a second page on the back with other stuff from your early days. But Duncan's resume, look at this. He surpassed Magic Johnson is the most prolific double-double man in postseason history. Finished with 158 double-doubles, and that record will be safe for a very long time. During the finals, Timmy also broke Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's record for career postseason minutes. That's right, no player has spent more time on the court in the playoffs than him. Tim still assaulting the regular season record books. He passed Patrick Ewing and is now in the top 25 all time. With the newest ring that he has, Timmy is now paired with Kobe Bryant as only 2 active players to win 5 championships. Wonder who's closer to getting his 6th. I bet it's Tim. And Tim now stands alone as the only player in league history to start for a title-winning team in 3 different decades. Wow, Andrew, how does he do this? I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, and you know what? It's a combination of being one of the most unselfish big men in the league, and that's what's amazing, because if you look at the number, I was just looking at that 24th, and we've seen him pass players and go up that list. Could you imagine if he was more selfish? He wouldn't be 24th, but he's not. Time and again over the course of the season, as we've done Spurs Live, we've talked about the complete package of Tim Duncan, how he can set screens for a teammate, how he's an offensive rebounder, how he can pass, how he can score. The beauty of Tim, though, over the course of his career, we know the one signature move of Tim is the bank shot. But from which side? He can score from the left and he can score from the right side of the basket. And the spin moves. There's not really one thing that you can take away from Tim Duncan. And even in 17 years, he continues to add things to his game, whether it's moving into the paint, the turnaround on the baseline. This is the beauty of Tim. Even he's evolving, even throughout this outstanding career.
That bank shot goes back to the Virgin Islands, where they had that tough weather. He used to throw it up there because it was so windy. Kids nowadays still try to attempt to do it. You don't see much of it in the college game. Well, Andrew, you've been around basketball for many years. I think it's been like 50 years now. Where is Tim in your top 10 players of all time?
He is solidly in this top 10, and there's no question about it. Tim Duncan is definitely there. We talk about the best power forward of all time. When you start seeing him with the Bill Russells and the Magic Johnsons, it's amazing. Michael Jordan, MJ, considered one of the best. Timmy's right there with him. Magic Johnson flat out changed the point guard position. He revolutionized point guard. Oh, that's when he wasn't playing power forward or center in his very first NBA championship. Bill Russell. All this guy did was win with those great Celtic teams, and the MVP trophy is named after Bill Russell, one of the all-timers. Wilt Chamberlain, unstoppable. I don't think this guy gets enough credit, but he's solidly in that top 10 is Wilt the Stilt, and he's more than just 100 points a game. The Big O, listen everybody, averaged a triple-double. Not 1 year, averaged a triple-double. Maybe the most underrated great player in the league. If you
no one will ever touch that record.
No, absolutely not. Larry Bird, what he did, you talk about that combination of the work ethic and an absolute gamer. He helped change that Boston Celtics franchise in the 80s. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, he comes out as Lou Alcindor with the Milwaukee Bucks, wins a title with them, goes to the Lakers. Even more greatness for Kareem. If Tim's got the bank shot, the skyhook of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I don't know why young players aren't getting all the tape in the world of those two guys and helping their game. Kobe Bryant. You know, I know we say this, the silver and black against the purple and the gold, but Kobe Bryant is absolutely something special, and he can flat out carry a team, and he has been so good, has Kobe Bryant. Rounding out the top 10, I'm going with Akeem Olajuwon because I love the completeness of Akeem's game, the way Akeem can play around the basket, but Akeem Olajuwon could also take a jump shot. When I was putting this 10 together, it was a little bit difficult.
Where's David Robinson?
Robinson, Irving, Shaquille O'Neal, they're all around there in that top 10 at some point, but Tim Duncan is solidly in that top 10 all-time great players. I'm going to say this again, and it's kind of sad because of the state of sports that we live in. I think Tim Duncan is going to be more revered
after his career is over. But this is what I love about his 5th championship. I don't know if there was any doubt about where he belonged. There's no doubt any longer, and we are talking about his greatness and where he belongs. Again, in 5 years, going right to Springfield, and when he decides to retire, I hope they just take the jersey right there, put it right up into the rafters of the AT&T Center. I mean, we can have a celebration later the next year, but this guy is automatic Hall of Famer. No doubt about it.
I think he could play into his 40s if he wanted to. He's in that kind of shape. Yeah. And he says he'll keep playing as long as he can contribute to the team. We're counting you down to the rally at the Alamo Dome right around the corner. Break time on Spurs Live. Coming up next, we'll discuss the greatness of the French Connection. Tony and Bobo won gold at the Eurobasket last summer and followed it up with the Larry O'Brien Trophy in 2014. We toast Tony and Boris after this.
To Diaw, that's a three, puts it in. Boris Diaw from downtown. Boris Diaw in the game. Back out Parker, hits a three. Great job by Diaw once again. Parker to the rim, flips it up and in. What a tough shot from Parker. Here comes the double team behind the back pass to Splitter. Oh, what a beautiful look from Boris Diaw. Parker gets in the paint, layup, rolls around and drops in. Green finds Splitter, beautiful feed to Diaw and the finish. Parker the drive and the finish. Boris Diaw, offensive rebound. Finds Duncan for the layup. Diaw makes his move, the layup, flip shot is good. Boris Diaw again. Parker pushes, Parker finishes. Diaw and Parker, best friends since they were teenagers, playing together in France.
Red, white, and blue, the colors of France and, of course, the United States of America. And the Spurs have two of the finest players in either country. Tony Parker has been a star ever since he came into the league into San Antonio as a 19-year-old. But Boris Diaw went through several teams before finding his home in the Alamo City. Here's some perspective on the dynamic from Tony, Boris, and Pop.
I'm just very happy for him, very proud of him. He's playing great basketball. I've been knowing him for so long. It's almost like a dream right now, just playing with him for the NBA championship. Just watching him out there and just show everybody what he can do. I've been seeing that every summer because I play with him in the national team, and he's always been a great player with us. I just think, the Bobcats was not the right fit for him because he's the ultimate, team player and needs a system and stuff like that. And so he's a perfect fit for us.
I always try to read on the floor who's going to be open. We all try to make good passes. Everybody in our team is reading, including me, but we don't want to go for the armor and pass. We try to make the right pass, and sometimes the easy pass is the right pass.
Boris pretty much does the same thing every night as far as helping us be a smarter team. At both ends of the floor, he knows what's going on most all the time. At the offensive end, he's a passer. He understands mismatches. He knows time and score. So he just helps the whole team have a better IQ, I think.
He always talks about that IQ, and he says he had a really good year because it was a contract year, too. He said that earlier this year. There's such a great dynamic between these guys who can speak the same language that other guys may not be able to understand on the court. Marco Bellinelli is one that has talked about that relationship with Manu Ginobili and talking Italian. Tony and Bobo have the same deal when it comes to French. You and I, we got that same thing, too. We do gibberish. Yeah. But it helps.
They found the two blowhards to put us together for this show. But there is something about these two, and it is that dynamic going back to when they were teens. Boris Diaw said, you know what, Tony Parker could get to the rim anytime when he was there. He's created his game. Now watch these two play together. The simple handoff to Tony, and Boris is going to set that screen for Tony to get him free. Dirk Nowitzki is going to have to take Tony Parker. So Boris Diaw, where's he going to go? He's going to flare to that wing. Dirk commits all the way to the hoop for Boris Diaw. Once again, it's going to be a screen for Tony from Boris. Clips him. Pops out beyond the arc early in the season. If you remember, Pop said, Boris, we want him to shoot more, which is an absolute dream for a basketball player. Tony knows exactly where he is when the double team develops. Everybody inside that painted area. Boris the wide open three. He steps out and hits it. Now here, a little more patience here as Tony drives using the Tim Duncan screen. Boris is on the baseline right now. So if the commit comes to Tony, he knows that Boris is wide open. The little wrap pass to Boris, who now will attack on his own. Tony's going to give him the spacing and run back out to the wing. Boris in the paint, finds Tony. Now look at Boris. His back is to the basket, but he's going to protect his fellow countrymen right now. Wide open on the wing for Tony Parker. Just knowing where one another are on the floor, and they are so good about it. The other thing, if you notice, they know how to share with one another. Pop talked about that basketball IQ. He said during these playoffs that there may be more athletic players in the league, but there's not that complete package of players like Boris Diaw. And he mentioned the time and score, knowing mismatches. You want to know all about that? Remember the NBA Finals. How's Dwayne Wade think about that mismatch? Boris Diaw really made him pay.
Yeah, and he is the small ball killer, and the other teams are trying to go small, and they don't have a chance. And then you have Tony, who's the head of the snake, one of the best finishers in the league. When we come back on the championship edition of Spurs Live, we'll talk more about Tony and Pop, the best of Pop, as we continue to count you down to the big celebration at the Alamo Dome. The cops are ready. We are just 30 minutes away from part 2 of the celebration San Antonio style after this. Welcome back to Spurs Live, the championship edition, as we take you up to tonight's championship party at the Alamo Dome. We'll get there coming up at the top of the hour. Well, let's hear more post-game reaction after the first part of our show and the Riverwalk celebration. Here's Tony Parker after getting off the boat.
Wait 7 years for this, and now that it happens again, now for a fourth time for you, Tim and Tony, or Tony and Manu as well. Just the explosion of excitement for you the last couple of days. Can you put into words what it's been like for all you guys?
A lot of emotions, and just I feel very blessed, you know. And so sometimes it's hard to put words to how I feel, because I feel, you know, very lucky to be in a great organization and being able to share that, you know, with Pop and Manu and TD. That's a special bond.
He said something to you during, I think it was Game 3 or Game 4. He said, "That's great leadership." The history
That's
of
the best compliment I can get from Pop.
I would think. I mean, how often does he say something to you, and how long have you been trying to get that out of him?
Well, you know, me and Coach Pop, you know, we've been having a great relationship, and he's always been hard on me to try to give me like push me to the limits almost, you know, to try to be the best player I can be, and to have a compliment like that coming from him, that's the ultimate, you know, that's the best I can get.
Manu said earlier that he felt the pain that the fans felt after last year.
Oh, definitely.
And
we all felt it.
This year.
We all felt it. It was very, very painful. It was the worst loss of my career. You know, I wanted to cry. So to be able to come back, and shows a lot of character of that team.
What about all the fans that you've seen out here, though? I mean, 18,000 in the AT&T Center, but to come out here and see
it's the best. It's the best because you can feel like all the happiness. I think everybody was so frustrated from last year that they're celebrating like it's 99, you know, like it's the first championship. So it's pretty cool.
Tony, have you and Pop, you and Timmy been able to kind of sit down since clinching Sunday and really talk about what
Yeah, we sat down a little bit, but right now we still like in the moment, you know, and try to enjoy it. But I think later on in the summer, you know, it'll be a nice dinner with one of the best bottle that Pop has in his wine cellar, and we can, you know, talk about all that.
If you had to define this championship as compared to the rest in one word, what would that be?
The sweetest.
Why?
Because everything we went through and what happened last year and the way we came back is the sweetest.
How much say are you going to have with Tim on his decision?
Hey, we'll see what happens. Let's enjoy it right now, and we'll see what happens.
So you don't know?
No, I don't know. I don't know.
You slept much lately?
No. I don't sleep. 2-3 hours maybe. It doesn't matter right now. I'm off for 3 months. I'm off for 3 months, so I'm good.
Is that because of the baby, or is that because of the championship?
Because of the championship.
How was it to not go to practice?
It was the best. It was the best to go and just know that, you know, we're the last team standing. Best feeling.
During the parade, Sean Elliott asked Tim Duncan if he was coming back, and he deferred and said, "Oh, I think Patty Mills is coming back." He's coming back. Come on. Now, we know Tony is the head of the snake when it comes to running this offense, but that almost seemed to come as a surprise to the Miami Heat. I can't believe it because he's one of the best finishers in basketball. Andrew, he beat Miami's traps and really was all over the place against the boys from South Beach.
And you heard what Tony said about the leadership of Pop. Pop says, look, I don't even call anything anymore. Tony does it, and in so many different ways. Another Fox Vision to show you just how good Tony Parker has been. Tony has the basketball drive into the paint. Now, he's already beaten that man. Gone. Shane Battier in the paint. Already blown by 3 defenders. Now it's time for Chris Bosh to step up, right? He's the last line of defense. But Chris Bosh out of position, so Tony dishes off the easy lay-in by Tim Duncan. Here, you want to try the trap, as you were talking about, the hard hedge by Chris Anderson to come out, try to double-team trap, force that turnover. The patience to find Boris, then run to the wing. Look, you can create the trap, but you still have to guard Tony Parker. He's a shooter now. This isn't the guy who's just getting to the rim. And by the way, that's why we were killing Mario Chalmers during our post-game shows. It was those kind of lapses that ended up killing Miami. Tony will do that to you. Here he stays on the wing, and then he is so deadly, the one dribble to his left. Look at the room that he has there. So, because he can hit that outside shot, you're going to give me the room? Then I'm going to hit it. No one better in the league. The little crossover going to his left. Chalmers so late, he's able to score. And Tony, if you remember, the reason why he kind of hesitates, he sees where Chalmers is, giving him that room. And if Chalmers had run to him, guess what? He's got Tim Duncan there on the baseline. Those are the decisions. That's the leadership that Pop has said Tony Parker has now. And I'm telling you, he's got to be a coach on the floor. That's what Tony has been.
Yeah, and you can make the argument he's one of the best finishers in the league. Yeah. He shoots over 50% in the paint. And a guy who played through a lot of injuries that would have kept people out. A hamstring, the ankle in the OKC series, 7 injuries that we know about. He had to shut it down for a couple weeks around the All-Star break.
Yeah, and he's not going to tell you how hurt he is. We'll find out maybe afterwards, but that's not Tony Parker.
Coming up next, there's one guy we haven't talked about. And not that he wants the credit, but Greg Popovich, the Coach of the Year. We'll show you the best of Pop and talk about his legacy, which is pretty amazing. He's not watching, so he won't get mad that we're talking about that. There's the buses making their way to the Alamo Dome. We got the big rally. Everybody's talking. Bill Land and Sean Elliott hosting. It's coming up next on Fox Sports Southwest. Don't go anywhere. Do the bus stop here? And welcome back to Spurs Live as we take you up to tonight's championship rally at the Alamo Dome. Those pictures never get old. The celebration continuing here on Fox Sports Southwest. Well, we've seen many of the same faces in the Alamo City for the past 15 years. The man at the center of the stability, Greg Popovich, the mastermind. He's now the longest tenured coach in professional sports. That's all sports, and for a very good reason. Pop put himself in rarefied air as one of 5 NBA coaches to win at least 5 titles. Pop doesn't like self-promotion, but we'll do it. The Coach of the Year is in good company here.
He's in great company right there, and we touched upon this earlier. Jerry West said there's no finer coach in the NBA, so when the logo says it, comes with a little bit of meaning. And Pop, he has adapted. His team in '99 doesn't play the same that it does in 2014. I don't know if he gets enough credit for that. Always stresses the defense, but what they did offensively in '99 and what they do now in 2014, he's kind of had a throwback to his Don Nelson days when he was an assistant with Nelly in Golden State. And Pop always deflects that credit, like you say. He said, look, we just run the motion offense, and I just asked my assistant coaches, how can we tweak it and make it better? But this man has got the organization has had great patience with Greg Popovich, and he's been rewarded with some great players. But we talk about how it starts from the top. Let's go above the big 3. It starts because of Greg Popovich and because he trusts you to do your role, because he makes you into a better player, and he gives you that confidence. It's the man at the top who has this team so successful.
Yeah, and you think about the early days, the championship years of 99, 03, 05, those years were all about defense and defense winning championships.
Yeah.
But in 07, we started to see more offense,
Sure did.
and he's had the best offense in the NBA. Now, I know to his liking, he wouldn't like to have the three-point shot. He'd like to see more defense because he doesn't think it's fair you get 3 when it should just be 2. That's old school. But he has changed his philosophy to win these titles.
Right. And because it is a part of the game, you're not going to ignore it, and he's got players who can do just that. You go back to all the great shooters that the San Antonio Spurs have had. You embrace that 3-ball. But it is that motion offense. It is that good to great. It is to be able to get players who fit. We talk about the Spurs way. Whether it's a draft pick or whether it is someone who comes out of free agency, you have to get somebody who fits. And it's not so much a plugging in, because players can even adapt and get better, but I think it's because there is that demand. And as much as he demands of the role players, you better believe he's demanding of the Tony Parkers, the Manu Ginobilis, and even the Tim Duncan. I know he's joked. He said, I haven't coached Tim Duncan in 10 years. And Tim said, that's just not true. He yells at me just like everybody else. And that's the thing about Pop. He's going to get on you because you have to do your job. It's the reason why this team executes so well.
He's unfortunately held Tim Duncan back a little bit because he's wanted to be the point guard of this team. It just really never worked out.
Thank God Pop's won on that.
One thing we do enjoy is Pop at the podium, and Pop interviewed in between quarters. There's nothing like it. Let's take a listen of the best of Pop in the postseason.
We got to take it. We got to want it. Give me the juice. You got to be back. You're on his side like this. I want you right here, chest to chest. TP, great leadership.
Is there a benefit to being battle-tested for 2 straight weeks against a solid opponent?
Sure. That's logical to say that, I guess. If it was a rest, you'd say that's great. And since you don't get the rest, you say, well, we're really ready to go. So, you slice it any way you want. It's all psychobabble, really.
Pop, what are your objectives where LeBron is concerned?
Are you serious?
Pop, how did you think your team played in the first quarter? This is live television, well, it's taped.
It live. It means I have to answer, right?
Yes.
Talk about the value of opening a series like this and how that can affect the next game.
Everybody tries to win every game. We'd rather win than lose. I don't know what else to tell you. A young player comes in, and it's probably smart that a young player defers. Even Timmy deferred when he first came to league to David for about 2.5 days.
Could you talk about that about
Probably not, but go ahead. Mikey, I love you.
How do you think your starters responded to the change in lineup from Oklahoma City?
Fine.
How was the pace consistently in the first quarter for you? Was it what you wanted?
Yes, it was.
Thank you, Pop.
It's been a pleasure, David.
Always is.
Everybody in here knows everybody's got a piece of this thing. Kawhi thinks he did it all by himself. We all know that we all have a piece of it. But I've never been more proud of the team, nor have I ever gotten as much satisfaction from a season in all the years that I've been coaching. To see the fortitude you guys displayed coming back from that horrific loss last year and getting yourselves back in position and doing what you did in the finals. You're really to be honored for that, but I just can't tell you how much it means.
Great stuff there, Andrew. Thank goodness you don't give me the one-word answers on this show, or I would really struggle to fill the time. He's one of the best network time fillers. Well, we've heard tremors that Pop would retire when Tim does, but Pop did say during the finals that he wants to continue to coach. So Tim's coming back. That's what's happening, right?
You just connected the dots, didn't you?
My little mind and my basketball IQ pulled that off. So refreshing to hear from a guy who is so successful but never takes himself so seriously as we count you down to the championship rally. How do you see this franchise in terms of stability and long-term, because I know that R.C. Buford and Greg Popovich and all the way up to Peter Holt, that's what's so important to them.
Yeah, that really is, and that's the thing. I think there are the expectations on this team, and the reason why we've talked about this being a celebration for the city of San Antonio, there are the expectations that the Spurs have, that you have to have the high character, and you have to have that mentality of checking your ego at the door. I've always said this. I think the San Antonio Spurs team is the continuation in the NBA of those Boston Celtics of the 60s, who are revered in the National Basketball Association for their team and their teamwork and their excellence. And I think the Spurs are exactly like that. They are the continuation. I think that expectation is always going to be there, Rick, that you not only have to have talented players, but you have to have players with character who fit in that market. I just think it's so important that they keep representing themselves so well on the floor, but also off the floor.
Can you hear the Alamo Dome right now? Let's take a look at these pictures. The fans are in there. They're ready to rock the house.
A lot of people in that building, baby.
Oh, my goodness. This is like the greatest bowl game ever at the Alamo Dome. They're waiting for the Spurs rally, which is going to begin at 9 o'clock. We are going to cover the entire thing. You will see it. Bill Land, Sean Elliott hosting the whole thing, and the Spurs are going to come out. Everybody's going to talk. There's going to be comedy. There's going to be tears. You're going to experience everything you can ever imagine about this. You and I have been a part about this in the past.
Yeah.
This is the part that really wraps up the year.
I'm telling you, and you get guys, they kind of drop their guards a little bit. This is a blast. Can you forget when Steve Kerr came out with his 6 rings? That was a riot. The place went nuts. Bruce Bowen took the stage, and he was terrific. They kind of dropped their guard, and as big as that is, it kind of becomes intimate because they get to play off these fans. And I'm telling you, I love the fans that are in there. They have been there since this afternoon, waiting to get in there and just sharing the joy with this team.
And what a fun day, because you think about how so many fans get to experience this. You know, where you get to go down on the Riverwalk. A lot of those fans will go home and watch it on Fox Sports Southwest. And then a bunch of other fans get to go to the Alamo Dome. No other team does this kind of celebration.
No, it's just something that's unique to San Antonio, and it's the way it is. And like you said, the folks all along the river from all parts of the city, Rick. North side, south side, east side, west side. They are all there together because the colors of silver and black, they unite absolutely everybody when it comes to this. And, you know, look, you got people linking arms. I mean, it's beautiful because they're there to celebrate the Spurs. And, you know, again, we're so fortunate to run into them and have our pictures taken with them just coming off the set or going on to the set there at the AT&T Center. And that's just something special to have that connection. And for these fans, they embrace this team. This is their team. You know what I mean? My Spurs, you hear about it. My Spurs, I'm not going to miss them when they're on TV. They're certainly not going to miss a chance to celebrate with them.
So many kids will be named Tim, Tony, and Manu in the next week or so, born in hospitals all over the Alamo City region. And, you know, you think about it and you say 5 championships in 15 years, and it never gets old. With one more championship, hopefully next year, the Spurs will move into truly elite company. Take a look at the franchises that have won more than 5 totals. It's just 4, Andrew.
Yeah.
And, you know, you go back in the old days, I think it was a little bit jaded back then because there were only a few good teams. It's a much harder competition nowadays to see a team be able to do this and have 5 titles in 15 years.
And you mentioned that 15-year span. Rick, this wasn't a roller coaster of 15 years. This was a Spurs team that was a legitimate contender each and every year. I think it's that committed excellence of this franchise. Yes, the 5 titles, so sweet to get it in this span, but they've been excellent that entire time.
Let's take a timeout. We're just minutes away now from the big celebration at the Alamo Dome. As things get up and running, be sure to keep it locked here. Everybody dressed for success. How about those outfits?
Maybe not dressed enough.
Yeah, how about that? Spurs Live, the championship edition, continues after this.
My God, man, put on some pants.
Spurs Live, the championship celebration edition continues. We got the big rally at the Alamo Dome coming up in just moments here at 9 o'clock. The entire team is in the building. The buses have arrived. The fans are packing that place. Big homie. I love it when we recognize our people. Those are our people. We love those guys.
Someone said, be careful, big homie. If you remember on set, careful that guy. I said, that guy's protecting us. We have absolutely no worries whatsoever.
It's not easy walking around in that outfit because, you know, your whole body is covered up.
Yeah.
And he'll come out there on our live shots on the post-game edition of Spurs Live and be all covered up. You know, you look at this title, and we keep hearing this same theme over and over, Andrew. This is the sweetest.
Yeah,
you can point back to 1999 in the first time, in the first one, 03, 05, 07, all special years. Tim dominated the development of the big three together. Now their fourth title to celebrate.
Yeah.
But this one, the redemption and the revenge on Miami, and to do it in that kind of fashion where they beat him so convincingly.
Yeah, and didn't Sean joke off the top of the River Parade about how teams have written this Spurs team, or I'm sorry, people have written the Spurs team off for being too old. So that combination of that period, and look, there were some playoff seasons where, look, they ended way too quickly, losing to Memphis and Dallas in the first round, and I think that's what's happened. But that redemption, the revenge, if you will, from last year does make it sweet. Look, talking to Spurs people, because I was not part of the organization in 1999, they said winning against New York that year, because it was the very first for the Spurs, that was kind of special. Smaller group, they could celebrate together, and the first would have to be so sweet. 03, to watch Tim and David locked arm in arm, and that was David's last game. That one was special. 05, against the Detroit Pistons, Greg Popovich and Larry Brown. It was the mentor and his assistant, and then it was Pop who got the best of Larry Brown, and how close they were. 07, which was not close, but if you remember, Tim Duncan said after 07, he hugged LeBron James and he said, "This is your league now." Well, not so fast. Timmy still has a say at that. Yes, he was right about it, because LeBron has become otherworldly with his talents on the floor. But team has trumped, and to do it again after falling short last year, just a wonderful job by this Spurs team, and I can see why it would be sweet. Tony said it, Manu said it, Tim has said it. It's got to be sweet for those guys.
Yeah, and you know, you got to give LeBron and the Miami Heat credit, too. They were very gracious and classy in losing to the Spurs. Probably learned from the Spurs the year before.
Exactly what they said, because if you remember afterwards, Pop was hugging the Heat players. They said, we learned a lot from them. Hey, you don't get to 4 NBA championships, any finals. You don't get there through luck. Not the case at all.
What is this like, you think, for the Spurs fan? Because this has been a week-long celebration, and now it all culminates right here on Fox Sports Southwest.
You have held your breath, right? You've held your breath for a year. Time to exhale.
Oh, exhale it is. Put on your favorite hat.
Lawrence Payne, I got to get that in. My boss, Lawrence Payne.
Yeah. He needs a raise next year. He did a really nice job, Lawrence. Lawrence has been partying for the last couple days. Well, enjoy the Alamo Dome celebration. There's the Iceman and David Robinson. It's coming up next on Fox Sports Southwest. And welcome back to Spurs Live, the championship edition. Well, we saw the boats on the Riverwalk, and now we're ready for prime time. That's right, the big celebration at the Alamo Dome. It is packed to the rafters, all the way up to the retired jerseys of David Robinson, Avery Johnson, Sean Elliott. And by the way, all those retired jerseys are in the house, including the Iceman, George Gervin, to celebrate a 5th title in 15 years. The Spurs Championship Rally is just moments away from starting here on Fox Sports Southwest.
Captain Late, Johnny Moore. That's what I love about the tradition.
Silas.
The history. James Silas, unbelievable.
Love it.
Retired Johnny Moore. You said Avery, Bruce Bowen, the most recent addition. It's the history of this team, and that's the thing. What did we hear? Aaron Hartigan talking to Olga, right?
Oh, yeah.
And there's other people who have been there from the Hemisphere Arena days. I met someone today. He said, I'm from the Hemisphere Arena days. I was there when this team first came here. I mean, that's you're talking about that link back. And I so wish, Rick, I could have seen a game from that building. I mean, I know the game has changed. I know the eras have changed. but the Spurs and San Antonio have always embraced one another.
I've met people at the airport, our buddy that's through security, and he goes, hey, I remember the team when it was called the Chaparrals, and they moved down from Dallas. You think about all the things that had to happen to build up this dynasty. You know, some say David Robinson saved basketball in the city of San Antonio. There's the Coyote working his way into the Alamo Dome.
Is he wearing pants?
Yes.
That's the question.
He's wearing pants.
He is, okay.
He is, and nobody gets the crowd going like him. The best mascot in all sports, and I'm not just saying that because I'm biased.
Rico, you and I get a chance to see a lot, and this guy keeps it fresh. It's not the same recycled gag over and over. He keeps it absolutely fresh. I'm with you, absolute best.
One of my favorite bits this year was the ball that went out of bounds and then he lost his eyes.
Right.
You know, that was just one of the best bits. And I asked him about that. You know, you got to time that. Of course, he doesn't talk very much.
No.
So he just kind of did sign language. And what I got from that, none of that was planned. It just kind of happened at the end of the regular season.
He's just so quick. I love when he dances with the Silver Dancers. Admitted to me that he never sweats more because he's got to think about the routine, and yet he makes it look flawless, doesn't he?
Not easy to do in that outfit, and there he is getting the crowd going. We got a little bit of a late start here. Things will get going in just a couple minutes here on Fox Sports Southwest as we celebrate the 5th championship of your San Antonio Spurs. And, you know, Rick Renner, Andrew Monaco, the fan favorite, we've been so blessed to be around this team, thinking about the years, 15 consecutive seasons now of 50 or more wins, 5-1 in the NBA Finals. I know last year's disappointment really hurt a lot, but able to redeem themselves and get revenge and get redemption on the Miami Heat.
Yeah, and I think, you know what, it just adds more to the story of this franchise. Going into the finals last year, there was a talk of, oh, the Spurs get to the finals and they've never lost. Well, what were they going to do after they had lost? They bounced right back, 60-plus wins. They run roughshod through the playoffs. They put up offensive numbers that we hadn't seen in the postseason, and then they destroyed the team that knocked them out last year, again, offensively. And if Miami doesn't win Game 2, it's a possible sweep, and I think put on display for the entire nation what team is all about, what good to great is all about. We saw Kawhi break out on a national stage, but so did many other players. There may be new names for folks around the nation, but the names that are very familiar for us, and those names and those faces are going to get on that stage at the Alamo Dome and just have a blast.
I can't wait to see who's dancing. I think something special is going to happen with Kawhi Leonard,
I do too.
The second youngest MVP of the NBA Finals. Well, we got the Alamo Dome celebration coming up in just moments on Fox Sports Southwest. Let's take a break. The Silver Dancers are ready. Are you? Back with more after this.